everybody. Here we are. We're live. You may have noticed I am not Shane Warren. Pastor Shane is taking care of business right now. He's out of town, but we have a show for you tonight. We have a great topic. We have some great content, and I have some great guests right now. We have switched things up in the studio. If you see extra equipment, it's because I have all the buttons right now. I have every button in the building. I'm pretty sure all the light switches in the studio are right here. To my right, we have Connor back again. Connor, see if I can get switched to you here. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Always a pleasure to come and talk with you guys. So I'm excited. This sounds like it's going to be a great discussion tonight. So I'm looking forward to it.
I think it's going to be really, really interesting. So, and over here on my left, we have the man, the legend, the fantastic Micah J. Micah, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me tonight.
Man, we're excited you're here. You got to keep talking, though, because your lower third's still on. You messing with me here.
Oh, well, I do want to say thank you and hope we do have this great content tonight. And, when Noah called and said, hey, do you want to do this? I was like, do I? Yes, I do.
All right. Well, we're ready to get going. We've got, like I said, a great topic this evening we're going to get into. We got some people watching already. I'm going to be looking all over. Y'all better just get used to me looking to the side until Pastor gets back. Anyway, we are going to talk about some issues that are very, very hot topics in this country right now. You may have seen the title of this. We called it Up in Arms, ? We are going to be talking about Second Amendment issues. We're going to be talking about First Amendment issues. We're going to be talking about different perspectives and outlooks, and we're going to be talking to you. So if you're in the chat right now, hey, good seeing you. Thanks for coming in from New York. We are going to be talking about a lot of things. So if you agree with us, tell us. We love to hear that. If you disagree with us, tell us. We love to hear that. We want to have a discussion with you and not just a bunch of talking heads up here going at things. So that said, I have prepared a little introduction here. I'm not nearly as suave as Pastor, but here we go. If we're going to talk about this issue of Second Amendment rights, the right to keep and bear arms, the right to defend ourselves, we kind of need to understand the history of it a little bit. If we're going to look at things that were written in the 18th century, we need to know how people talked then, how the language was used to get at the bottom of what this stuff really means. So with that said, I want to cover a couple definitions if we can do that up front. You have to look at all this stuff from the perspective of the Bill of Rights. You can't have without the Constitution you can't have without the Declaration of Independence. You need all of it. You can't have the Declaration of Independence without English common law, but that's a whole nother topic. If you look at the language that's used in the Constitution and in the Bill of Rights, just to cover a couple topics here. The first is the whole concept of the militia. You guys feel free to chime in here if you have something that you want to get in here on this about. The militia is taught. It was taught to me in school. I don't know how it was taught to y'all, but that was something that was called up by the government in time of need.
That's exactly how it was presented to us as kids as well. But we kind of grew up in the same area. So, I mean.
We're both from Texas.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what about you? Is that the way you were taught it as well?
Yeah, like just basically if the government needs it, they'll call it at any time. So, yeah.
Yeah,
and we got the same basics on teaching on that.
Okay.
Yeah. And now part of that may be because, Connor and me are from Texas, and Texas wouldn't exist without Tennessee. So we are inexorably linked. But anyway, to understand the history of it, to understand the concept there, the militia is a better definition would be every able-bodied person who is armed, who could come to the aid of the country or their state or their city or their neighbors. I think would be a really good definition. Would you guys agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I concur 100% on that.
Okay. So then the next thing we need to mention is to look at, and I was actually reading some articles about this today, getting ready for the show. One thing that is very, very common in interpretation of this part of the Constitution, especially among the people who want to get rid of it, is they ascribe the right to keep and bear arms to the militia. And the very plain language of the amendment is it's the right of the people.
Well, I mean, why are they even trying to interpret it? I mean, they just want to get rid of it. There's no need for interpretation if you're getting rid of something.
There is a whole other argument there that, I mean, they don't seem to care about anything else in the Constitution. So, I mean, why are they trying to make a constitutional argument for this? But if you look at the history of it, you look at how the language used, it's clear that what's implied in the concept of the militia is the civic duty of every person to come to the aid of their neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking shortly before we started, and we were talking about, it's neighborhood watch to the max, and I like that kind of analogy.
Right. Taking a play out of the Black Panthers, neighborhood watch.
Amen.
Yeah. We were talking about that before the show and trying to understand the history of it because I'm 44. I was not here for that. The Black Panther Party had been functionally dissolved already before I was born. And then finally, I think officially dissolved. Micah, did you tell me in 1982. So I was not here for that. I only know what my parents know about it, what my grandparents know about it, what's been in movies and what's been in documentaries. But there's a fundamental level if you look at what was happening in the country. All right. You look at what was happening, especially in the South, but really all around the country in the 60s and into the 70s during and especially before the civil rights movement. I understand completely why people would want to arm themselves and protect their neighborhoods. I understand completely.
Yeah, no doubt. Like that is one of the things where just having some discussions with people and friends, like I was like, I understand the Black Panther Party, like the watch party. I understood it. Maybe not the means that they did it, but I definitely understood it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree completely. I understand that. Now I don't
even have a problem with the means that they did it with, because a lot of the times they were standing back, just observing, trying not to get involved unless they were needed.
Right.
So I'm fine with that.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it was needed a lot.
Yeah.
If you just look at how many people got assassinated in that time period, yes, it was needed. And that's one thing. We're diverging off the topic a little bit here, but I've really been thinking about, as crazy as the last 3 years have been on every front, right? With lockdowns, with riots, with businesses being burned down, with police brutality, whatever, there's been a lot of crazy going on the last 3 years. We have not had the level of assassinations that we had in the 60s.
The FBI is not motivated to assassinate anyone at this time.
Right. They got everybody where they need them to be.
If you've been watching this for a while and you've been watching since Connor's been with us, you know that Connor and I see eye to eye on a lot of issues with maybe some authorities that we don't consider trustworthy.
No, what? I trust the government explicitly. They are my friends.
Yeah. I trust the idea of limited government.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So one of the reasons we've assembled this cast here is because we bring some different perspectives to this. I have lived in the suburbs basically my entire life. And in Texas, which Texas is not really in the South, not in the way that
it's
Louisiana is in the South. It is like a whole other country. Right. So I have a different experience than Micah does for multiple reasons.
Correct.
So that's one of the things we're going to talk about here as we get into it is our different perspectives. Connor is currently living a lifestyle very different from mine. I live in the middle of town, and Connor is bushwhacking the wilderness and building things out of just nothing but sweat and work. And
oh yeah, I'm completely off grid. I bought my property because it was unrestricted. We have bought materials and built our house as we go, paycheck by paycheck. All of our electricity is off of solar. I have a well. I'm not connected. The only connection I have to the outside world is my internet.
Well, I mean, you got to have that. So.
Yeah, dude.
You got to know what's going on.
Yeah. I'm not too far off from you. I'm on 39 acres. We got some cows and some land, water surrounding all the sides, so I can make sure I can see whoever is coming in at what point.
Nice.
As Tim Pool has said on his show, if you can see my house, you're on my land.
I wanted to get that sign that is said, if you can read this, you're in range.
Yeah, we're a little crazy. So anyway, thank you everybody for joining. I'm looking right here. We got a lot of people in the chat already. Guys, drop your comments on what we're saying. We want to know what you're thinking. And definitely like this video, share this video. And in addition to that, we need you to go ahead and subscribe. It's not always going to be me sitting here. Pastor Shane will be back. I know he's a lot more entertaining. If he's not better looking, but he's a lot more entertaining. And he's more respectable. So Shelly says, we only got internet earlier this year. Wow.
Yeah.
I remember getting DSL in the 90s, and we've come a long way. But in a lot of places, no, that's not. It's not like it is.
We
in my
went
house.
straight fiber optic. It was very nice, man. They just happened to be in our neighborhood, and so I was like, hook it up.
So there's a lot of people I know are moving towards being self-sufficient. And part of being self-sufficient is the need to be able to defend yourself. If you're out in the country, first of all, you're going to be dealing with predators.
Yes.
And the worst predator that exists on the planet is a human.
Yes.
Who has bad motivations. And we need to be able to deal with that. So Connor, do you have anything you'd like to bring into the conversation about that?
No, I mean, that was one of the primary drivers during World War II. The government was pushing people to grow their own gardens and become more self-sufficient. Now we have the pendulum swing. And so now we live in an era where they want us more dependent upon the government at every beck and call, every turn around the corner. What can government do for you? Less is what they can do for me personally, but that's, everybody has to make their own decisions about that.
And the interesting thing about that is that this is happening in the season where you can go out and ask college students where the milk in the store comes from, and they'll tell you they make it in the back. So,
Did they really?
Yeah, that was a real thing. That was I forget who did that, but I did see that video, multiple interviews, and people just no idea that there was even a supply chain. That was during the lockdowns when there was a news story about millions of gallons of milk just being poured out. And I didn't find out until recently, guys, why it was poured out. The reason they poured it out is because the dairy farms were deemed essential, but the companies that make the milk jugs were not deemed essential, and they were shut down.
Right.
So there was literally nothing to package it into.
Oh, see, I hadn't heard that. So yeah, that's good information to know.
Yeah. Like I said, we have Shelly saying it's looking like we need a militia, and that's kind of my thing, is that there is one at all times.
I definitely like Shelly.
Yeah. Shelly's got it going on.
Yeah.
So we've talked briefly about the homesteading perspective there, and the obvious need to be able to control your land, control access to your land.
Like being self-sufficient on your land. I was fortunate enough to grow up with my granddaddy. He puts out a beautiful garden every year. At 89, he still putting out a garden. And when I was younger and I had to go weed it, I was like, I don't never want to do this. And now I'm like, man, I wish I would have really paid more attention to how to get stuff to grow, because we're going to need it now.
Yeah, all my stuff dies, man. I'm horrible.
Yeah.
Liz and I have like black thumbs. The plants just immediately turn black.
And then like everybody that I know is like, oh, we're going to do raised garden beds. And I'm like, okay, how'd they do this year? Not too good. I'm like, my granddaddy didn't raise anything but the ground,
We had one successful year that when we were still in Louisiana. We set up a watering system. We did everything in big galvanized tubs, and we got more okra than you could shake a stick at. We got a ton of cucumbers for pickles.
You some pickled okra. I love pickled
yes,
okra.
Yes, yeah, we did. We pickled some okra, and we fried a whole lot of okra. And interestingly, we do not put okra in our gumbo.
Really?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
You just don't like it.
Okay.
It ends up kind of slimy. Now, there's things you can do. There's ways you can prepare it beforehand that'll make it a lot better. And the funny thing with that is, and I don't remember what country or what specific language, but gumbo is actually a word imported from Africa that means okra.
Wow.
Really?
So, yeah. So,
never knew that.
yeah, we don't put any okra in our okra. We got a comment. JFK said it's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Yeah. And that was actually a very good thought. Yeah. Liz says that one year though, it was awesome. The next year we didn't get any tomatoes. I'll tell you that. We blew up every one of those tomatoes. We overwatered them. It was not good. And we are way, way, way off our topic.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah, no,
like,
that's cool. Yeah, that was the tire squealing right there.
We all kind of knew what you were doing though.
Yeah.
If you don't have your land to protect with your firearms, you won't have anything to grow. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. There is implicit upon man, I believe, males specifically, not just the human race, we need to protect. Would you guys agree with that?
Correct.
I don't know. Shelly does a lot of the protecting, man. She's pretty fierce.
She is pretty fierce.
Yeah.
But somebody in the family unit has to take the responsibility. I mean, everyone has a responsibility, but somebody kind of has to oversee
Yeah, I
it.
definitely take that responsibility.
Yeah, I can see that. So one of the things we were talking about before the show is the perspective, not to be that guy, but Micah has a different perspective than me, partially because of his heritage and because of growing up here and not growing up in Texas.
Right. Yeah. So I was telling Noah before the show that I had done some studying with older Black Americans on why they felt that the Constitution for the Second Amendment was not for them. And it was really crazy. It had its peaks and valleys, but one of the main things that we actually got out of that was that during the Second Amendment being wrote, Black people were slaves. So a lot of Black people, even to this day, don't feel like the Constitution is actually for them when it comes to the Second Amendment, and definitely do not carry a pistol. Now, you have a lot of people that are okay with the hunting, the old Marlin 22s and the 30-06. They're okay with that because they're wood-based guns. But anything else, they're like, no, we don't want that in our lives. You don't need to do that. I love my grandparents dearly, but they do not see eye to eye on this topic with me. My granddaddy hunted, my dad hunted, but as far as carrying a gun, no, they will not do it. And I asked them why. I said, why do y'all feel like you can't? Because I'm growing up in a time where I wasn't in the 60s. I was an 86 baby, and so I really hadn't seen.
Feels so old right now.
I really hadn't seen what they have been through, and granddaddy went through the 60s, grandma went through the 60s, but they have a different perspective on let's not bring any more trouble to us than what we need. And so they don't want to carry guns, they just want to, and it's not just them, it's a lot of the older generation feel like for, I guess, what they've been through, they do not want to have any extra trouble with anybody besides what they already, quote unquote, have.
Wow.
Now, we were talking earlier, and you were saying that there is a stark contrast in the younger generation. About what age do you see that cutoff being?
As far as the cutoff from what I've seen, it's the people in their 70s, and if they've made it to the 80s, bless them. But 60s, 70s, and 80s, probably right in there. The younger generation, like I was saying, we're all about anything we could do to help out in the world.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, I could see that because, and it's sad. It's a sad situation, the whole thing. But, I mean, the great thing is that we do have that Second Amendment, and it was just a question of it being not applied equally.
Right.
And now that we're in a time where it's equally applied.
Ideally, it's equally applied.
Ideally. I'm living in this utopia. I'm saying ideally when it's equally applied, everybody should have that right.
So with you saying that, just a few things that we were discussing as well. To bring it back to the Black Panther Party, they're the only party that ever went into the White House armed. So then in 1967, yes, with the Mumford and Reagan Act, they said nobody can go.
That wasn't the White House, though, was it?
Or was it?
That was the state capitol.
State capitol.
State capitol in California. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that explains,
makes more sense.
That explains
Yeah.
why
Okay,
Reagan
I was
was
like,
involved because he was governor.
Yes.
Yeah, governor. Yeah. But they were the only ones to go into, a place like that. And so it's really funny when you look at the history on it. The media or whoever turned it to be a racist thing. And it wasn't. Like, I read and looked at Mumford's interview, and he said nobody should go into the White House that's not supposed to be there armed. Right? I mean...
Yeah, well, the State House was in the middle of legislation at that point when they came in. Not that they were shooting up the place or causing any trouble. They were just, practicing their Second Amendment rights.
Right.
And, of course,
Maybe not wisely.
No.
Right.
No. And
unless you're trying to get a fight.
And the funniest thing is, and this is a great, just example, those politicians put the fear of everybody that these black people are going to rise up and they're going to kill all of us. And so everybody needs to give up their rights so that we can all be safe.
Right.
Anytime they want to do something, they put the fear out there, and then we give it a little bit.
And I think that was a big start of the kickoff of like the buyback programs and all that. Disband everybody, you know. But here's the crazy thing on that: when you see like the Black Panther Party exercising their right, and you're giving people hope that, hey, somebody is going to take up for us because they didn't feel like the police could take up for them.
Correct.
And then you just disband them. No more. You can't do that. That just takes everybody's hope and just makes them go, I guess we were still wrong to think that we were going to get a step ahead.
Well, as a thought exercise, if we play into our national fantasy that we live in a utopia where there are no bad people and bad things don't happen, and therefore,
wait, are you telling me it's not a utopia?
No, it's not a utopia.
Dang.
You know, therefore, so we think, you know, we have to sue everybody and we have to sue General Motors if a wheel comes off somebody's car and hits another car on the highway. You know, and it can't be that somebody else didn't tighten the lug nuts right. It's got to be somebody's fault. And it's got to be somebody with enough money to sue. But that's another topic. But if we kind of play into that and say, oh yeah, let's just say all police are honorable people who took up the job, the dirty job that nobody wants to do, took it up because they really genuinely want to help people and protect and serve. Let's just say 100% of police are that. They physically can't. There's not enough law enforcement to be everywhere at every time.
Well, and that's the biggest argument for the Second Amendment.
Right.
I mean, average police response times right there. When you're talking about your life is on the line in a matter of seconds, and the average police response time, if you're in a really good neighborhood, is what, 30 seconds to a minute and a half? If you're in a bad neighborhood,
the national average is 18 minutes.
There you go.
To an emergency call, a life and death call.
So we're in the country, so
2.5 hours, something like that.
Yeah, if they show.
They got other stuff to do. But no, it's, just, you know, remember, when seconds count, the police are minutes away.
Amen.
So, and that's where so part of the problem, you know, playing into that whole, this false utopia that some people in this country seem to think we're living in, is that we assume nothing will go wrong. We assume nothing bad will ever happen. And then when something does, we don't know how to handle it. And we don't realize that we do, in fact, live in a fallen world. We live in a fallen world. There are people who have evil intentions. There are all people who have bad plans and do bad things.
It just seems to me like nothing bad does happen until there's gun legislation on the docket.
Right. I wasn't going to go there, but I agree with you.
That's a whole other issue. We're interested to know what you guys think about that who are watching right now. I have my thoughts. I know some amazing stories from that I got secondhand from Liz, who worked with a psychiatrist who works with people with multiple personalities, and a whole lot of them have lived in specific places where government recruiting and training things happen. And it would not surprise me at all if some of these horrible incidents that we've seen in this country were set up. Tim Gann says, carry a gun because a cop is too heavy. Yes, very, very true. Very, very true. Most of them are much too unwieldy and difficult to conceal.
Yes.
So I gotta put Micah's face on the camera here.
He's just shaking his head.
He's, no, I can't believe we went there. Yes. So I know a lot of us in the chat right now, and all of us here are really on the same page on a lot of these issues, but not everybody is. And so another question would be, do you guys think that there are valid arguments against a constitutional, and the way it's defined in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution of Declaration of Independence, a God-given right to keep and bear arms? Are there any valid arguments against that?
I think the only arguments that come against it are not actual arguments against the Second Amendment. They're arguments about people that are taking wrong motives and executing the Second Amendment in the wrong ways and hurting other people. Whenever we look at any of the rights that we're given, that are God-given rights, it's all about not harming other people, you know, unless you're in that situation where you're stopping evil lawbreakers, things like that. So
Which
For
happened recently in a mall, and was that in Indiana?
Indiana.
Yeah.
Yep. And he dropped him in seconds.
Right.
Yes.
Because he was there.
No games.
Yeah. So, man, I completely lost my chain of thought.
We were talking about, if there was an argument for, being against the Second Amendment. And I was just saying that, it's just when people execute it poorly, that's the only argument that they have.
Yeah.
It's not against the actual Second Amendment.
Right.
Well, because laws don't restrict law-abiding people, or they, on one hand, they only restrict law-abiding people.
Well, yeah, you put up a sign that says gun-free zone, and nobody's bringing a gun in here.
Yeah, that's the classic joke that goes back decades. Is like, oh yeah, no, gun-free zone. I was going to go in and shoot some people, but now I can't. So there's a sign. I'm not going to do it.
Definitely don't understand is like you have people who are so against gun ownership. And I'm thinking, president's protected by guns. Everybody is protected by guns. Why are you so against it? What's the real motive of why you're so against it?
Because they're so ingrained,
Right.
with that fear mentality of a firearm. The firearm is the only inanimate object that people look at and go, it's going to jump off the table and shoot somebody any second. Just don't turn your back on it.
Right.
I found that if you take people...
Never, ever. I have laid my guns on tables. I have walked away from my guns, and they have never, ever went off and just said, hey, man, we just going to kill a bunch of people today. Never.
No, they don't do that. And that's the whole point, right? I tell you what, the quickest way to fix somebody's fear of firearms is to take them shooting.
Right.
Take them out there, go through some basic gun safety, take them through the whole mechanics of loading, reloading, clearing, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, wow, this is a tool. This is a mechanical device. It's completely under operation by the person that is operating it, and that's it.
And they're actually really cool mechanical devices.
Oh, they're so cool.
Clocks, guns, and locks are just really neat.
And
if
I'm
you're
a fan of
into
watches.
mechanical stuff. Yeah. And that's some of my YouTube I watch the most is about how all these things work, and they take them apart and explain it. And it can be really, really great. Deborah Carter says people are indoctrinated. Yeah, absolutely. Shelley says that her roommate was so afraid of guns, she was nervous about a BB rifle and tried to convince me to go to City Hall and get a license for it.
I remember that.
That is, oh my goodness. So that is one thing is that, that we were talking about it a little bit earlier too, is so many people do not know even what the laws actually are, let alone the correct interpretation of them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, ignorance is bliss, I guess.
No, it's not.
Mm-mm.
It's easy, but it's definitely not bliss. So I run into people all the time that, and actually I would go so far as to say maybe most people that I talk to do not know that it is completely legal for you to own a machine gun.
Yeah.
It is completely legal. It is regulated. You have to buy an expensive permit for it.
Yes.
You have to get a tax
Which
stamp.
I am not a fan of.
No.
Not at all. The whole National Firearms Act should be done away with. It is here. So here's the thing. So what happened in this country? Everything was completely unregulated until the 30s. And in the 30s, the government decided they needed to begin to regulate some things.
Well, that's what we were talking about before we started. I mean, about the Navy. Back in the day, the entire U.S. Navy was made up of privateers that were private citizens, and they had military grade cannons mounted on their ships.
And if you guys notice the logo for this episode, it's a cannon. It's not a pistol. It's not a scary black rifle. It's a cannon because that's included in arms. That was that meant military weaponry. There was a letter written in 1775, and I just hold on. I'll tell you who wrote it. I'd tell you if I could find it in my notes. Samuel Johnson defined arms as weapons of offense and armor of defense. So, and went on to say that it clearly refers to military weapons, not a separate class of weapons. So that would mean if I could afford to park, maintain, fuel, and operate a tank,
You can have it.
Do it.
By the perspective of the people who wrote the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, I can have a tank. Now, the problem we get into is something as incredible as
Road
the
maintenance and
Constitution,
potholes.
road maintenance, yeah, something as incredible as the Constitution and the Bill of Rights that gives so much power to the people. Remember that the whole point of that document is to specifically outline what is the authority of a federal government, what is the authority of a state government, and then all other rights devolve to the people. The people can create counties and cities if they want, and then establish power at the county and city level. But the whole point is to say this is specifically what the federal government can be in charge of.
But the whole outlook nowadays is that people view that, oh, I only have freedoms or rights that the government has given me.
Right.
I mean, that's what they're teaching people. And so people are defaulting on this instead of going, no. They're the ones that are limited in their rights, not us.
Yes, that is how the entirety of the foundational documents of this country is written, is that the people have all the rights, and those rights come from God.
Yeah.
They don't come from government. And for the purpose of having roads, having a national defense, other reasons that are much more convenient to organize at a state or city or federal level, we institute governments to handle those things on behalf of the people.
So, you were talking about, I actually have a question for you. You were talking about in the 30s where they started really regulating laws on the guns. Have you ever heard that it was because in certain areas, like in New York and stuff, in the 30s, the gangsters were outgunning all the police?
I have heard that, but I've heard something even wilder. And that is that the National Firearms Act and then the act that preceded it, I can't remember the name of, that began to regulate all that, was not actually a response to organized crime and violence because of organized crime. It was actually a response to movies about organized crime, because that was the big blockbuster movie genre of the 30s.
Wow.
Was mob movies.
Okay.
And so you have all these misconceptions. You have if you guys, I've never watched any of the John Wick movies. I've just seen snippets from it, but I've seen this one scene, and in this scene, John Wick and another assassin are walking through a mall. One of them's up on the mezzanine of the second level, and the other one's down below. And they have their silenced pistols, and they're shooting at each other, and no one knows because it makes them completely. They just go.
Oh, I hate when movies portray silencers because, that's
I'm
not
gonna
how
go ahead
it
and
works.
let you know that, ladies and gentlemen, that is definitely not how it works. I shot a 338 Lapua. They're like, hey, it's a silencer, dude. You don't need earplugs.
Yeah, it's suppressed. It'll still knock over the truck if you park too close to it.
Right before I actually pulled the trigger, I seen them all covering their ears, and I'm like, what's going on? Boom. And I was like, oh, y'all got me.
That's what friends are for.
Yeah,
right there.
yeah. I watched a video, a YouTube short earlier today. It was somebody in Army advanced individual training, and they were doing a carbine and pistol course, and both were suppressed. Their M4 was suppressed and their pistol was suppressed, and everybody was still wearing hearing protection because it's a muffler, y'all. It takes something incredibly loud and brings it down to really loud.
Yes.
And there is no question of what it is. A handgun sounds like a handgun, a rifle sounds like a rifle, a shotgun sounds like a shotgun. Doesn't matter if you put a muffler on the end or not. We got some chat going on right now. Deborah says, people live up to your expectations of them. We trained our boys on proper use of a gun, starting with a pellet gun. They were very young, and they never hurt themselves or anyone else. And she got military kids now. So going on and continuing with that glorious tradition.
I agree with that.
Yeah. That's, I know we can talk upbringing here. We had guns in the house, but the only time they ever came out is when we went camping. We would shoot at stumps. So my initial handgun training or rifle training was to be terrified of them. And I don't think that's the best way to do it either.
It's a delicate balance, that's for sure. You have to have a healthy respect for them because they are deadly. But at the same time, as long as you are informed and trained on how to handle them, what respect to give them, just like anything else. I mean, you give somebody a knife, and you have to be told, okay, this is the way to handle it.
This is sharp.
Yeah.
This is the oven. It will burn you if you touch the stovetop.
And you do.
Yeah. yeah. And you do. So, go ahead.
Okay. You guys know that I have twins, but 2 girls, they got pink little rifle. My first rifle is what they're called. And I have told them, we don't play with this unless mommy and daddy's with you. This is the boomstick end. Don't point it towards nobody, you know. And then I got to thinking, I was like, you know, it would be rough if somebody broke in and they actually got them with a pink 22, you know.
Serves them right.
Yeah.
Oh, God forbid that ever happens. But yeah, no, they're starting right. They're starting young and know how to use it safely. We got a lot of people saying, yeah, they remember in high school gun racks and trucks and kids hunting before and after school. And even in Dallas.
That's the whole plot of Red Dawn right there.
Right.
That is the whole plot of Red Dawn. Red Dawn. Yeah. Dated, but great movie. Deborah says it's not the gun, it's the immature people and the evil people that are the problem. Training is critical. So that touches on something we were talking about earlier. And that is that these kinds of rights, these extremely high level rights to say whatever you want to say, to hang out with who you want to hang out with, to print what you want to print,
as long as it's not fire in the building,
to keep it. Actually, we were told that was a law, that you can't yell fire in a crowded building. That Supreme Court case actually ruled that you can yell fire in a crowded building, but you can't escape the consequences. You're still responsible for what happens. It's not illegal to do it, but you're going to be civilly liable for the stampede that follows. Yes. But all these things, they are predicated on reasonable, educated, smart people who care about other people, who care about doing what's right. This kind of country is built for people who are able to take care of themselves and treat other people right.
Ooh, I got to change my opinion on the whole argument now. We should do away with all of it if it's predicated on all that.
Because it looks like we don't have it.
No.
Right.
Wow. What do you guys think in the chat? Michael, your mama's in there and says you had pellet guns until you got shot in the head. Okay, what's this story?
So my granddaddy gave me a pellet gun, and he said it's jammed. It doesn't work. So me and a friend of mine was playing one day, and he was like, all right, I'm going to give you 10 steps, and then I'm going to fire. I'm like, whatever, dude, it's jammed. And then I felt this unbearable pain in the back of my head. I still have a dent to it in the back of my head. And it wasn't jammed. My granddaddy just didn't know how to use it.
Oh my goodness! I had friends that they wanted to play airsoft. They couldn't afford airsoft guns, so they just got leather jackets and safety glasses and shot each other with BB guns. So that would be an example of not the right way to do it.
Correct.
You guys, say something. I'm scrolling back here. There was a really interesting comment, but it scrolled off the screen and I got to find it.
Man, it's really funny though, because like I'm sorry that your mom called you out like that.
She did,
but
she's good at that, by the way.
But I'm glad that we got to hear the story because that was pretty funny. I shot my cousin in the butt when I was a kid with a BB gun, and when my uncle tore up after me, he was ready to shoot me back. And yeah, it was no fun. That's when I learned about firearm safety the most, is because when you hurt somebody else bigger than you is going to come after you. Mm-hmm. So that was the lesson I learned on gun safety.
I really think everybody should do gun safety, even if you've been carrying all your life. There's classes out there that make you a better person to wield your weapon if you need to, and concealing it. I know a lot of friends that have a lot of guns and, they're Pistol Pete's or whatever. Well, that's a basketball analogy, but they're but they print. And I'm like, hey man, you're printing. How do you know? Never mind. You'll figure it out one day. You know?
I found the comment. So Angela says, Angela, if you're still here, put in the chat where you are. She says, don't you need a gun license to practice at a range? I would think in California probably, but definitely not in Tennessee.
Not in Tennessee at all.
No, Tennessee has recently, just in the last year, gone to it's been called constitutional carry. It's not real constitutional carry.
I've never actually been to a gun range. I mean, other than when I was in the military.
I'll take you.
I've never been to one. I always shot on people's property. That's the way I grew up. And, so I never had a cause to pay somebody to use their place to shoot.
Right.
I've been to a lot of gun ranges. We actually, in Louisiana, we had a guy in the church who did competitive pistol shooting, and he had a range at his house, an indoor range with turning targets. It was a
poor
blast.
guy.
Yeah, suffer. Yeah, anybody with like 12 gun safes, man, you feel sorry for them. That's another thing that people don't get. Like, I know people who have firearms that they've never shot. Now, I think that's morally wrong.
It is morally wrong.
But at the same time, I understand why people would want to collect them, because they're really interesting pieces of technology.
And, you know, a lot of people that I know that have an inordinate amount of firearms view them as investments.
Right.
They will buy them just because they got a good deal on them, and then they'll stow them away, never fire them. And it's just because that's their little security nest, you know, that they know they can make more money on them in the future. So
I compare the firearm topic of just collecting and stuff to people in their Jordans. Everybody grabs a pair of Jordans or whatever, and they wear them once, put them in the box.
Or wear them 0 times after
And put 'em in
spending
the box.
$390 on them, with a subscription service that watches for them to go on sale on websites and automatically buys them.
Right.
Mag says, I'm from South Carolina, and most boys grew up hunting or shooting targets in their yards in rural areas. And that leads to an interesting topic, is that this is the reason this is a debate in this country, is this is largely a rural versus urban debate.
absolutely.
Because we live, and even, you know, I mean, I live in town, but I live on the edge of town. There's a field on the other side of the house next to my house, right? But we live in a very different environment than Chicago.
Yes.
Yes.
So on the one hand, Chicago is wrong, and the Supreme Court has told them they're wrong to restrict gun ownership, but I understand why they have a different perspective on it. Do you guys agree with that? Disagree?
I agree with you. Chicago, though, it's an animal in all in itself when it comes to the gun rights.
Yeah, Chicago's a different place.
All the major cities are different places, but I think if we started earlier, we're always talking about education reform. I mean, we actually started to make it where it was mandatory, you know, back like what they did with the 50s when you had gun training in the schools.
Oh yeah, that's actually something that came out with and after World War II, is the civilian marksmanship program.
Yes.
And your tax dollars at work buying rifles and teaching people how to shoot.
So you guys both make a good argument there, because once you actually think about it, in the 50s or 60s or whatever, everybody had a 22 that they brought to school.
Yeah.
There wasn't no mass shootings then.
No. We had a different educational system. We had a different family structure.
Oh, you'd get some whoopings at home.
Oh yeah.
You even think about doing something like that.
Yeah. No. Yeah. That'd be beat out of you before you even had the idea to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's an argument to be made for getting back to that kind of time.
We definitely do need to get back to there. I think a lot of people need to start whooping their kids again. I know we're off topic on that, but they need to whoop their kids.
I know me personally, my parents, I love my parents. My parents were hippies, and I did not get nearly the whoopings that I needed. But the ones that I had were impactful. They did what they were supposed to do.
Well, you keep throwing bombs at me with Shane, man. You about to get a whooping. I'll make up for your parents.
Bring it, man. Bring it. I'm ready. I mean, I'm actually not ready. Connor studies the Bible way more than I do. He makes me feel bad all the time.
What are you talking about?
You come with these really, really articulate arguments, and I'm just like, nah, man, that's not right. Tricia says laws differ state to state. You need to check if you carry. Absolutely.
Amen.
So,
and not all states reciprocate. So even if you are trained to carry a firearm, check state to state to make sure that if you do have a concealed carry permit, that is going to be honored in the state that you're traveling through.
One thing that I've noticed is many of the states, and it's a lot of states that have gone to permitless carry. Is it 30-something states have gone to some
It's the majority
form?
now.
Right.
It's
It
the
is
majority
now.
Permitless handgun carry, if you are not a convicted felon or under a restraining order or have recently been in a mental hospital, you can go and buy a pistol and carry it.
One of the biggest things that I think is a misconception that's out there in the world right now is people think it is so easy to buy a firearm. You just walk in, you know, throw your money on the counter. I got into a huge debate on Facebook. Don't ever get on Facebook debates. I'm sorry. I went to that level and
They trolled you and got you.
they got me. The trolls got me. But when I seen something so ignorant like that, they're like, "No, you can buy them. They're at the fair, like what do you call it, the swap meet,
Nah,
and just handing them out.
Gun
I'm-
shows and
yeah,
stuff.
Yeah, I'm like, you still have to be a licensed firearm dealer. You still have to do a background check. They might sell you that weapon. You're going to pick it up at the store.
Yeah. Most people don't realize that. And they're like, oh, you can just order them on the internet. Yes, you can order them on the internet. And
Where
then
you
they
got to
get-
pick it up.
They get shipped to someone with a federal firearms license who runs an FBI background check on you to determine whether you're eligible to receive that firearm or not.
So I had a incident one time with that. I was out of state, bought a firearm, shipped it here, got here. They thought I still lived out. They were like, "You live out of state," and I was like, "No, sir. Here's my license." Wouldn't sell it to me until I had to like call Tennessee something Firearm Association or something like that. I had to call them and like, "Hey, listen." They're like, "No, Mr. Johnson, you are who you say you are." They're being ridiculous. So finally sold it to me, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Like,
Can you blame them taking extra due diligence just because?
well, no. Yeah,
I
you're
mean,
correct.
the repercussions that come on them with the ATF if they don't follow every T, dot every I, they're enormous.
Yeah. And it's interesting if you guys have ever purchased a firearm and done the federal background check system. It asks some really, really interesting questions. It asks you if you're addicted to drugs. It asks you if you're an alien illegally in the country.
Have you ever denounced?
Have you
the
denounced your United
Yeah.
States citizenship? Have you been dishonorably discharged from the military? There's a lot of things that I can't imagine anyone answering yes to.
No.
And yet I have been told by
All the
multiple
time. They answer
gun
yes
stores, yes,
all the
people
time.
answer that. They're like,
We thought we were going to be truthful about it.
you are not buying a gun today.
Well, it's a felony to lie
Right.
on the form unless you're famous and parents are rich and highly political figures.
Yeah, that's another topic.
Yeah.
No, but it's interesting because that would mean that the person who would answer that honestly and know that means that they're not buying a gun that day, that's the person that I'm actually less worried about having
Exactly.
a gun.
Right.
Because that's an honest person who has done some bad stuff. And that could go into a whole other topic of why is it so difficult for people who have lost some of their constitutional rights to get them back?
I was in a Bass Pro one time, and I had already filled out everything I was going to fill out. I went right through, and we went and shot and came back, and there's a guy was still standing there. And he was like, "I'm just waiting on him to, give me this firearm." I was like, "Bro, it's been like 2 hours. You might need to walk off."
Rather than coming from the back with the firearm
Right.
in the box, they may be coming
So,
from the side doors with the
That's
handcuffs.
what they did. They came in on him.
Ooh.
There are a lot of systems in place, and we talk about and we hear in the news that some of these horrible things that have happened are because there's been a failure in the system. Going back to somebody earlier commented, just a one-word comment said community. So if we look at Uvalde, if we look at Buffalo, in both these cases, the system worked. These were people who did not have criminal records. They were not under restraining orders. There was no legal reason in the law that they should not have been allowed to get those weapons, and they used them for horrible purposes. The failure was in the community. The failure was in the people, their family, their friends, the people around them, who in many cases knew they were crazy
Oh, yeah.
and anticipated that they would do something like that, but did nothing to intervene.
Right.
Because again, the structure that we have in the country, or that this country was set up on, was for good moral people.
Well, it's always somebody else's problem, right? Somebody else will step in. Somebody else will do the right thing. I'm sure the system will work it out. Quit putting your faith in the system. Put faith in yourself and your own judgment and the judgment of each other to stop things from happening like this.
Like
Everybody knows your cousin Sammy is crazy. All right, stop him.
Like,
Don't
to
give Sammy
Sammy.
a firearm.
Talk to Sammy.
Right. You see a lot of the people saying like, we knew that they'd killed X amount of cats and dogs and stuff. We knew they had that violent trait. We knew that they were into drugs and stuff. And the nickname at school was Shooter. Like, if you get a nickname in your school, elementary or whatever, as Shooter, you should probably get rid of that kid,
That's the kid you need to start bringing candy bars to.
Right.
You get on his good side.
Deborah brings up a great point. She said that we've made teens virtually infants. Not that long ago, Teenagers got married, supported themselves, had children. She says, I'm not advocating child marriage, but teens have far more ability than we give them credit for. And that's absolutely true. I have great friends in Hawaii, got married. He was 16, she was 15. This was in the 50s in Hawaii, so that was a little easier to, I think they still had to have parental consent to get married. But, you know, they made a living for themselves. They made a life. They had kids, grandkids, great-grandkids.
Oh, you were already on retirement and pension by the time you were 35. Back then, you didn't work out in the fields. You had 20 kids so that they could keep working in the fields.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that, which brings up the interesting thing. If you think about that time period and you think about having to be 45 to be president of the United States, that's a pretty mature person in the 18th century.
Yeah, and that's why we can look back now and look at all these founding fathers. You know, a lot of them were like 28 to 33. And I'm like, yeah, I was not that mature at that time. No, I couldn't have done any of that.
Now, Ben Franklin at 15 was way sharper than I am right now at 44.
Right. I just feel like the times were definitely different back then. You had to be self-sufficient because, you know, a lot of people didn't come from money back then. Some did, some didn't, but you had to make it work. Otherwise, you weren't going to survive.
That's absolutely true. And that goes into the great expression, which is proving true right now, that hard times make strong men make good times, good times make weak men, and weak men make bad times.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it any better. And that's,
well, I didn't say it.
I know you didn't say it. I know, but I couldn't have quoted it any better. How about that? Max says, God meant something to people back in the day. School shootings started when God was kicked out of school. And I definitely think that's a part of it. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I can agree with that. I just really honestly and truthfully, I just really wish that people would open their eyes and realize that, you know, it's not the gun, it's the heart of man that's making these decisions. Like, lay it at their feet, not the gun manufacturers, just lay it at their feet.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, if it wasn't a gun, it'd be a knife.
Right.
If it wasn't a knife, it'd be a rock.
Right.
You know,
the first time it was a rock.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You know, if somebody has that intention, they are going to find a way to do it. If it comes down to even using their bare hands.
Right. Because, you know, if you're in a car wreck and you kill multiple people, they don't do anything about the cars.
Well, not currently. Now, there have been some instances with Tesla autopilot, and you're supposed to be aware and ready to take over control of the car. And some people are using that
taking
time
naps
to take a nap.
Yeah.
And yes, they have been held responsible when their cars have hit things and people, but there's still people who want to sue Tesla over that. So we live in a society that likes to abdicate responsibility and then blame someone else.
I would have totally abdicated responsibility on the Tesla because I would have been nap time. If I paid that much money for a car, it better drive itself.
We're not there yet, though. So I actually saw, we're kind of off topic here, but I actually saw the other day, I think I've had this conversation with both of you guys actually over the past few weeks. 3 weeks ago or so, you know, I was talking to some people about how there literally is not enough lithium on the planet to make electric cars for everybody, even just in the U.S., let alone on the planet. And I said, well, that they're actually fine with that because they don't want everybody to have cars.
Oh, of course not. Everybody should be regulated to public transportation. That's the whole Agenda 2030. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy, right?
Exactly.
You're going to ride share everything, and they don't want us to have that freedom of movement, because when you let the masses move, then they will move in revolt against you when you start being tyrannical.
So that's kind of like Red Dawn, like you said earlier.
I love Red Dawn.
Me too.
Red Dawn's getting a lot of recommendations right now. So
there's an Australian version.
Original
too.
Or remake Red Dawn?
Original
Red Dawn?
Wait. Which one's the original? Is it with
the 80s one with Swayze?
Yeah, Swayze.
Original.
Yeah.
I like them both, man. And there's an Australian one that's really in the same niche that I love as well. And I wish I knew the name of it right now.
I'll have to find that and see that.
It's love all three of them.
Okay, so there's 3 Red Dawns we've learned today on the show. Guys, like this video, like it, share it, subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. We're getting close to wrapping up here. We've been going for 55 minutes, guys. You believe that?
Wow. I did want to hit before we run out of time. We were talking earlier about the new HR bills that are on slate.
Absolutely.
On
Let's
deck.
get into that.
And I was seeing if Micah could just go ahead and lead us through that, since you brought it up to begin with in the conversation.
Right. We have some new bills that are knocking at the doors, and they got a lot of movement on it. One of them is actually the HR 1808, and the other one is 2814. The 1808 is basically, if I'm reading it right and understanding it right from the Cliff Notes on it, the 1808 is banning assault, high capacity pistols, assault rifles, which, everybody thinks
define high
AR
capacity is 2 rounds,
Right.
probably.
and everybody thinks,
Well, they're talking about semi-automatics in general, and just in case there's somebody watching that does not know anything about firearms, all semi-automatic means is when I pull, it shoots. For every pull, it shoots. That's all that means.
The original terminology in the mid 1800s, when the first sort of prototypes began to come out, would be self-loading.
There you go.
Self-loading was the term.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah, as opposed to having to do it every time. And that's another thing. I had a discussion with somebody the other day, and they said, they don't like AR-15s, scary black rifles. And I said, okay, I tell you what, if that's too modern and you don't think people should have modern military technology,
Gatling gun.
what if I just use technology from the 50s? Could we cut it off at the 50s? Would that be all right?
Because you still got an AR.
Because the AR-15 is from the 50s.
Yeah, you still got the AR in the wood grain.
Yeah.
And you're correct about that. A lot of people do not like black guns, period.
That's just racist.
Bro, you throwing me for a loop right now. But, I mean, hey, since you took it there. No, I'm joking. But, yeah, it is about the black scary guns. And I'm like, that what was it, a 1905 semi-auto rifle that first came out for the war? One of them like that.
Well, I mean, even before that, you have the Pedersen device for the 1903 Springfield, and
right. And I'm like, it's wood. It does the same exact thing. You just don't have a clip that long that you might see, or
Yeah.
But yeah, most definitely, they do not like the black guns.
I still prefer M1 Grand over an M16, but that's just because I've shot both of them, and I hate an M16 because it's just constantly jamming on you.
There's also, if you go back to the interwar period, or actually these were developed for World War I, so guys think 1918. Browning automatic rifle.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Beautiful wood-stocked, fully automatic, high power. Not high power like they say they are as high power.
No.
Like what is considered a full power rifle cartridge. This is when they were putting the sights they were putting on military rifles with this ammunition went out to 1,900 yards, 2,000 yards, ridiculously overpowered.
They didn't have no OSHA.
Shelley says, would revolvers be considered an assault rifle or an assault weapon? By that bill, I wouldn't be surprised.
Right, but I don't think it is.
It is not considered in that particular bill as a revolver being one. But this whole term assault rifle, assault weapons, this is a misnomer. Anything that you hurt somebody else with is an assault something.
Right.
There's no such thing as an assault rifle. This is just a made-up term.
It's literally a made-up term.
Right. And they've ran with it and put the fear of God, they say, in people for doing that.
All right, hit me in with that other bill that we have.
The other
on
bill
deck.
is the HR 2814. That watered-down version is that if I buy a gun from Springfield or Smith & Wesson or whatever, and I go out and kill somebody, well, they can sue the manufacturer for it, which is ridiculous.
It's completely ridiculous. I can't imagine them applying it to other companies. So if
I'm fine if they apply it, as long as they apply it to pharma.
That's not going to happen. Pharma has much better lobbyists than gun manufacturers. No, my question I was going to ask is: so if I buy a 2x4 and I beat somebody with it, can they sue Georgia Pacific?
Oh, well, I mean, you're setting the precedent, right?
Right.
See, and I'm one of those people that says remove warning labels off of everything, and let's just see how that works out. And I'm okay with that.
The Great Purge, is that what you want?
Yes.
It's I'm not necessarily for the Great Purge, but I know that we are definitely a weaker country and a weaker society than we were even just a few decades ago.
Right.
We didn't used to need safe spaces for college students. College students used to be expected to be able to handle their emotions, or, they got kicked out of class and maybe kicked out of school.
Yes.
Where it's a very, very different country now. But this kind of discussion right here, all these other discussions that we have, guys, this is enabled by your giving. I want to give you an opportunity to partner with Shane Warren Ministries. Again, I am not Shane Warren, but your giving, your support of his ministry pays for all of this equipment that you see right here and enables us to have these kinds of discussions. If you'd like to get behind that, you can do that. You can text SWM to 73256. You can also go to onrealm.org/SWM/give and become a partner of Pastor Shane's ministry. And if you do that, I think there's cups, there's hats, there's some other things. You'll get some sweet merch.
And it's only what, $20 a month?
It's really any amount that you can do, but if you'll do $20 a month, then yeah, you will get some merch in the bargain.
Get you some swag.
Get you some swag. Start repping that sweet Shane Warren Ministries merch. That is hard to say right there.
One more time. Say it clearly. One more time.
Negative. Not going to do it.
Shane Warren merch.
That's sweet merch for Shane Warren Ministries. It's kind of like writing. If I try to write too fast, I can't read it. If I try to talk too fast, you can't understand what I'm saying.
Right.
Fair enough.
But anyways, guys, we've been at it for an hour and 2 minutes. We're fixing to wrap this up. Thank you so much for everyone who's stayed with us. Mag says I'm in agreement with labels being removed. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's just have a bit of a free for all. And you know what? Here's the thing. Even people who are not very smart are actually pretty smart. We are made in God's image, and if we had a chance to figure it out, we could figure it out.
Hey, people are intelligent, on the individual basis. It's when they get together that the IQ drops about 50 points. But in my concluding thought for this whole thing, I think a well-armed society is a polite society.
I would agree completely. And especially that's where concealed carry becomes very important, because you don't know if anyone around you could be armed and ready to take action. If there was a threat to someone's life, you would be very, very reluctant to do something stupid.
Amen.
Right. Last thing I want to say is, if you do support the Second Amendment and these bills that are coming up, if you could do everyone a favor and flood the House of Representatives and tell them no. Vote no against these.
Vote no.
Midterms are coming up, and this is your time. You can actually put more pressure on them than you normally can.
They work for us.
Yep.
Remember that is another thing that is foundational to this country that seems like they're not teaching right now. Our representatives work for us. Let's make them work for us.
Tyrants will never give you the education to know how to get out from under their tyranny.
Guys, we are never going to stop if we keep doing this. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Like this video, share this video. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Pastor will be back next week, and we'll have a great mix. I don't know who all is going to be on the show. We may just add a camera and have all four of us with him here. So thank you so much for watching. We love you guys. Keep it real. Write your congresspeople. Write your senator. And let's take the responsibility that we're supposed to be using to make this world a better place.
Amen.
Amen.